All right, so we're starting out by looking at you the way you were when I initially saw you. Now, this was back in, I think, November 30th of '09, right? And you had been diagnosed with this nodal melanoma. Go back, you were diagnosed when?
In June of 06.
'06, right?
No, 4.
Or 4,
04.
yeah, it was '04, that's what I thought I remembered.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in June of '04, you were diagnosed with this nodal melanoma. Now, before that, right, say let's go back to maybe 2000, right? Tell me what you were doing, how life was going, right, what you were looking forward to and so forth.
Oh, it was, everything was going fine, you know, I felt good. I hadn't noticed anything that would make me think something was wrong.
Right.
And I was just doing my normal stuff, you know, working in the garden and taking care of the house and the animals and all that. And my daughter noticed the mole on my back.
On your back.
It was
Okay.
on my back.
Uh-huh.
And she goes, you know, you need to go have that looked at. She had told me about a year before. Mom, you probably need to get that mole checked. Well, I couldn't see it when I turned one way. You know, you couldn't
Right.
see it. It was that right in the dent in your back.
Right.
And so that same week, that was on the weekend, and on Wednesday I went to my massage therapist, and he goes, so something must have happened.
Yeah.
It must have changed dramatically.
Yeah.
Because he says, because I go to him every week.
Right.
And he goes, you know, I think you need to go get this thing checked.
Yeah.
I said, okay. Well, that night, a spider or something must have bit me on the neck. And I wake up in the morning, my face was all swollen.
Yeah.
So I had to go to the doctor. So I went to the doctor and he wanted to give me a shot. He told me to drop my drawers, you know. When I dropped my drawers, he goes, what is that? And I went, okay, God, I got the picture. I'm going. And so I went home and I called the doctor, the dermatologist, and I went in and he took a biopsy of it.
Now, was this a local dermatologist?
In Sherman.
Yeah, in Sherman. Okay.
And he said it was, at that time, it was stage 2. Melanoma.
So it already progressed to stage 2.
Yeah, when I found it.
Okay. And so what was his suggestion on
His
the
suggestion was me to go have it removed.
Right.
So I went and had it removed, and I'm thinking, that's it. It was all done and said, and that was the end of the deal. And I changed up my diet and stuff like that.
Now, why did you make a decision to change your diet at that point?
Well, because I had a book called Beating Cancer with Nutrition by Dr. Quillen.
Yeah, Pat Quillen. Yep.
And so,
Now, he used to be right up here in Oklahoma.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I was reading that book, and so I was just sort of trying to make the things that I ate, you know, a little more nutritious and stuff like that. Nothing real dramatic. And so then, a year later, I was putting my lotion on, and I felt this lump on my side.
Right.
And I went, oh, God, what is that, you know?
Now, after you had the, what type of doctor removed the initial mole?
He was a surgeon, just a surgeon.
Not a plastic surgeon, right?
No,
just a surgeon.
just a surgeon.
And so he removed that, and did he, to the best of his knowledge, think that he had gotten it all?
Yes, he thought he had it all. He
Yeah.
said he had it all. So when this came back, I went back in, and the dermatologist took a thing, and he said it was melanoma.
Again, now this one that came back, was it visible? Did you just feel a lump, or was it another mole?
It was under the skin.
It was under the
just
skin.
a lump like in your breast.
Yeah.
It was a lump. And so I went back to that surgeon, and you know, and now I started reading that book more carefully. And so I went back in, and he like cut it all out. He cut it out, and stuff. And then he wanted to go back again and make the incision wider. Now maybe I should have let him do that. I don't know, but I didn't like him. And I told him, I said, you know, if you're going to work on cancer patients, you need to understand about cancer.
Yeah.
And you should read this book. He wrote it for doctors. And he wouldn't even look at it.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't go back to it.
Yeah.
I didn't go to it. And so I just, that was it until another year.
Now, when you had that removal, was there any other staging done? Did they do any CAT scans, PET scans, any other imaging to see if things had spread?
After that one, no.
Well, now, when they did this second one, did they compare this biopsy to the one previously to see if these were the same cancer?
I don't know.
Huh.
He just came back and he said it was melanoma.
Yeah.
That's all he said.
All
I
right.
didn't care for him.
Yeah.
I didn't like, he wasn't informative. He didn't want to talk
All right.
or anything like that. So I was going to this chiropractor that did the AMAS test. That was in Dr. Quillen's book.
Right.
And so I went over there and I thought, well, I'll get the AMAS. And so I started doing those, the AMAS test.
Right.
Okay, and in the meantime, I got in contact with Dr. Quillen.
Right.
And I was working with him by phone
Ah.
and doing phone consultations with him. And so I was doing all kinds of tests and, blood and stool samples and urine and you name it. And I'd send it in and then we'd get back on the phone and we'd discuss it.
Mm-hmm.
And then this chiropractor's still doing the AMAS test. Well, then after they took that one out, the second one out, then one day I feel one under my arm
Right.
and then one in the groin.
Yeah.
And so now I'm in a panic.
Yeah.
So Dr. Quillen suggested I go get a second opinion from Cancer Treatment Centers of America.
There in Tulsa. Yeah.
So I went over there. And
I think that's initially where I met him.
oh really?
Yeah, when that's where he was back years ago, and I went up and met him and did some work with him there at the Cancer Treatment Centers of America back early on. That's
Yeah.
when after his book first came out. Yeah.
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 And so I went, but they wanted to take out my lymph nodes. They wanted to do this and do that. And I said, but it's not in the lymph nodes. Once you take them out, you can't put them back. Why would you want to, and anyway, so I kind of got an argument with them, they scared me, so I left.
Yeah.
And I came back and I called the Quillens on the way home. And I missed Dr. Quillen, but I got a hold of Noreen, his wife.
Right.
And so I told her, I said, Noreen, they wanted to take out my lymph nodes. And I said, what do you think? And she hesitated and she goes, don't tell Dr. Quillen I told you this, but don't let them take them out. She goes, because they can't put them back. I said, because it's not in the lymph nodes. I didn't understand that.
Well, now, how do you know that? I mean, was there any other imaging done?
Well, they biopsied it to begin
so
with. The lymph node that was, when he took this out of my back, I had to drink something, I don't know, and then I had to bounce around and stuff like this for a while. And then he took me in there and he gave me a test.
Uh-huh.
And this test was to see where this drained to. And,
Yes.
and it came to the conclusion that it came to here.
Okay.
And so he biopsied that lymph node and it wasn't in there.
Right.
So I just thought if it's not in the lymph node.
Okay, so that was then just swollen as an immune response. Your immune system was just kicked on trying to fight things, I guess.
I don't know.
All right.
Anyway, and so she said, yeah, don't tell Dr. Quillen I told you this, but don't do it. And so I came back home and then that's, okay, and so then, and they wanted, well, I don't know, I can't remember what all they wanted to do.
Yeah.
They wanted to do all kinds of stuff and I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
And so I came back, I did another AMAS, and then my doctor didn't like the way the AMAS tests were looking,
Yep.
the way they were changing. And he says, you need to see somebody. Wait, before that, I went and did, I went to an oncologist, and he sent me to a radiologist.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they did that. They did they radiated all three areas
Right.
with kind of, they were doing that machine, angling it toward it. And
So under your right arm, in your left arm, left groin, and then over there on the
Left,
side where
yeah, on
that
the
mass
left.
was. Now, during this time, what was happening to that mass? Was it getting bigger or kind of staying about the same? Or
well,
could you
there
tell?
wasn't nothing there until he radiated it.
But you said you had felt something.
Oh yeah, I mean
Yeah.
the lump.
Yeah.
There was a lump there, and I had put some black salve on it, and it kind of raised it up a little bit.
Right.
But when he hit it with that radiation, that's when it brought it on the outside.
Right. Yeah.
And nothing happened here that I knew of, and nothing happened in the groin. This is the only thing I could see, you
Right.
know? And so the thing started growing on the outside, and they went, oh, it's a skin infection. But every time I had it biopsied, they said it was melanoma.
Uh-huh.
And so they were giving me all these heavy-duty antibiotics.
Right.
Oh, I got so sick. I couldn't even walk. My kids had to come out and take care of me.
Yeah.
And finally I said, to heck with it.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this anymore.
Right.
And so...
Were they wanting you to do more radiation?
More antibiotics.
More antibiotics, I see.
And I told them, I said, I don't do well with antibiotics.
Yeah.
And I don't. They always make me sicker than what's wrong.
Yeah.
And so I just, and they were like $400 or $500 antibiotics.
Yeah.
And they just made me sick. They did nothing for this.
Yeah.
And so I just quit taking them. And the doctor, my chiropractor said, you got to do something. And he says, I know 2 doctors. And he says, why don't you call them? So I called them both, and Dr. Kasanis was the only one that called me back.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and when he told me what he did, I was all excited because Dr. Quillen was trying to find me somebody that was doing the stuff with vitamin C.
Right.
The high doses of vitamin C intravenously.
Yes.
In the IVs. And the closest place we could find was Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I didn't want to go to Kansas City, if I didn't have to,
Yeah.
And
That's Dr. Huntinghockey that's there in Kansas
Is
City.
it?
And actually, I've worked with him also. Really nice guy, Ron Huntinghockey.
Yeah.
And he studied under Dr. Hugh Reardon, who really pioneered a lot of the IV vitamin C therapy for cancer here,
Yeah.
right? I mean, they have a big research center up there. So you would not have been in bad hands there.
No, and it wasn't totally out of the picture, but I just kept looking and praying and thought, God, you got to help me. Here was my idea. Okay, God, if this is how you're going to take me home, then there's nothing I can do about it.
Right.
But if it's not, you got to open some doors.
Right.
Yeah. And and it seemed like the doors started opening. And so I found Dr. Kasanis, and I just started going to him, and we just did.
Now, that was when? When did you start seeing Dr. Kasanis?
I had probably been going to Dr. Kasanis for
I think that was in 2006 when you started seeing
Yeah.
him, I think.
6 or 7.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there.
Right?
I can't remember exactly when. And the vitamin C thing was the first thing we did.
Right.
And I did that for a long time. And then with all the doctors, we talked to all these doctors that they all work, like yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd find a new protocol because kind of the idea that I got that they were telling me is that the cancer cell multiplies 10 times faster than than your regular cell.
Right.
So that you got to break that cycle.
Right.
Somehow. And so I thought, well, I guess that's why we keep changing protocols.
Right.
And so I did the vitamin C for a long time. And then we did, I can't remember what it's called, but I think it was from Germany. And it was, I think we did the peroxide and the, what else? There was each day I went in, I did a different IV.
Mm-hmm.
And on the last day of the week, it was a cleansing IV.
Right.
And I did that for I don't know how many weeks.
Uh-huh.
And it was just one protocol after another.
And what was the response from those?
Well,
As far
it
as the
seems
cancer?
like each time it seemed like I was getting kind of better and better,
Right.
Once they operated, then I guess it was spreading, is why. It's like all of a sudden I have absolutely no energy. I feel like crap. And I don't know what's going on. So I'm doing these IVs and things. Some of them I felt good on. Some of them kind of made me feel bad.
Yep.
But I felt like we were working for the good,
Uh-huh.
And I felt like each thing we did was building on the last thing,
Uh-huh. Right.
And I think when I met you, did I just go to Mexico or just got back?
I think let me see now. Had you been to Mexico? I don't think you had.
Was I getting ready to go?
I think you were maybe getting ready to go. Maybe you had.
No, I came back.
Yeah, you had just gotten back.
Yes,
you had just
and I think
because by the time I came in, everything had failed. I mean, the reason he called me because things were getting worse, right? He had kind of kept things under control for a while, but then it got to the
Seemed like
point
it
where
was
it seemed
growing.
like, it started growing again. And that's when he got in contact with me. And so,